Hi, class. Welcome to week 2 of EMF 140, Introduction to Electronic Media and Film. So I really enjoyed reading all of your posts and your memories about movie going and rewinding VHS tapes and all the things that you remember from growing up with the movies and TV and media and the changes you and your generation have been through. So I'm just going to recap a little bit and then tell you what's coming up this week. So first, last week you introduced yourselves and got comfortable with the Blackboard Forum interface. And the first week we read about some of the materials and facilities that you have available to you for the class. It was really fun reading your stories, and most of you followed the guidelines for the assignment. First posting a thread, and then commenting on your classmates' threads, and returning to your thread for a reflection. People remembered going to the movies with their families. Some recalled particular snacks or treats that they got during or after the movies. I think in past years, the first films would have been really dominated by one corporation. The first films people remember seeing would probably, for the most part, be Disney. But your demographic seems to have a more varied experience. Some of you remember, for you, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings might have been really memorable. Many of you did have early memories of Disney, but it was usually VHS tapes. For example, Ellie remembered The Lion King. And there were just as many of you who remembered something like Rugrats or other films as the first ones you watched on repeat as a youngster on VHS. Many of you, like India, Izzy, and Simon, talked about experiences watching movies with your family. And a couple of people mentioned accidentally going to inappropriate films with their mom as a very memorable experience. Others talked about having parents with strict guidelines about what they could or could not watch. The prevalence of streaming is really clear now. Rebecca suggested that episodic TV feels easier to watch because it's like miniature movies, but it's easier to start and stop. That kind of story within a larger story is very popular right now, sort of episodic stories. Even films like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is a film on Netflix, they're employing episodic structure so that maybe people can easily start and stop as they need to. Or maybe people are afraid of commitment. Okay, coming up this week, the class lecture and slideshow, which is on Blackboard. And I'll show you where. It's on Blackboard right in the weekly folder. If you go to week 2 and you click on week 2 slideshow and lecture, you'll see this is part 1 of the lecture with the slideshow. This is part 2 of the lecture with the slideshow. And I've given you about the approximate time. And then if you just want the slideshow with no audio lecture, you want to relook at it or something like that, that's just the slideshow there. And this is a little film I talk about in the lecture that wasn't embedded in the slideshow. So you'll have to click on that link to watch it. And then the short film that I refer to at the end of this week's talk is Downward Dog, and you can watch that here. So let's see. So then let's just go over what you have to do this week. If you go to the weekly folders, you'll see that week 2, you have the slideshow and lecture, you have a storyboard assignment, and that assignment is to make a storyboard from an Aesop's Fable, and you can find the list there. And you're going to use an app, a web app, computer programs called Storyboard That. And then you're going to make a 6-panel storyboard and upload that as an assignment. And that is a project assignment, 5 points, due to me. That's not something you're sharing with your classmates. But on the other hand, if we go back to the weekly folders and we go back to week 2, hold on a minute, I need to plug in. Okay. If we go back to week 2, you'll see here is a video to help you using Storyboard That. And then for the discussion, you're also going to have to make a storyboard, but that one is hand-drawn. But please, not to worry if you don't like to draw or you don't know how to draw, etc. Everybody can draw a little bit, and you can just use stick figures. It's fine. So that's for the discussion forum. You'll find some templates in that folder. We'll go to the week 2 discussion in a minute. But the readings and materials for this week are all listed here. So there's reading about mastering the art of the storyboard, a video of Scott McCloud, a famous comic book artist who's written some great books like Understanding Comics, talking about the visual magic of comics. Start to finish storyboarding is more guidelines about storyboarding. These are just to help you out. And then as you watch the slideshow, this week's lecture, you'll hear about Dan Harmon's Story Circle. This is his original post where he talks about that, so you can read that for more detail. This is optional. If you want to learn how to make your academic writing for your other classes more like a story, more compelling, you can read that article. And then lastly, there's just this nice other visual infographic about story structure. Okay, so those are all the materials to help you. And then in your week 2 discussion, I can't go that way, can I? Oh, yes, I can. So after watching and reading this week's course materials, use one of the answers that you wrote in week 1. So one of your stories about going to the movies or watching a VHS tape or streaming YouTube videos, pick one of those stories and flesh it out. Figure out exactly how it can become like a very short little anecdote or story. And then you're going to need to figure out how to present it in a simple 6 to 9 panel storyboard. So I've given you options. There's a 6 panel, an 8 panel, and a 9 panel storyboard in that folder that you can choose. And then follow the guidelines. Please read these carefully. If you read and follow the guidelines carefully, you'll do well. You can use other methods if you like to do it digitally, you can. The simplest thing is probably just to print it out and draw on it, take a picture and put it back in, which is what I've showed you as a guideline. Please title your things as I suggest, your first name, your last name, storyboard, and then write a 1 or 2 sentence introduction to it. Just tell me sort of, here it is, this is my storyboard, this is the story that I'm talking about. And then here are a couple of examples made by students of this same assignment. So you can read those over. And then the initial post, as always, will be due midnight Thursday. And then between Thursday and Sunday, I'd like you to view 2 of your classmates' posts. And for each, pick of one of their visual images and think about another way they might present their story. How else could they visualize it? Could they have a close-up there? Could they have some sort of moving camera? Might there be some kind of cut to something else entirely? Maybe there's a different point of view shot. And explain how your other alternative would change the story. So this isn't a criticism like saying, oh, it would be better if you did that. It's just another way of telling the story might be this. Okay, and those responses are due midnight Sunday. Okay, so let's exit this. Back to the weekly folder. So I hope that's clear. You have quite a bit of reading and material to look at this week. And then 2 things due Thursday. Thursday night, you have 2 storyboards. One is the Aesop's Fable storyboard assignment, 5 points due just to me, and then the 3-point weekly discussion, and that is due on Thursday night, your original post, and Sunday night, your comments to your peers. Okay, as usual, if you have any questions, please go to the discussion forum, and then on the discussion forum, if you go to the FAQ forum, that's where you can post a question to me, okay? Nobody's asked me anything so far, so happy to help and look forward very much to reading your storyboards and seeing you this semester, later, hearing from you more this semester.